r/AskReddit by Reddit watchers. If you suddenly woke up and it was the 10th of September 2001, how would you stop 9/11? This questions reminds me of that show Early Edition where dude got the paper a day early and had to decide what tragedy he was going to stop. It was cancelled in 2000. Which was probably good because how could they deal with that? It reminds me more of 7 Days. A sci-fi series on up and about a guy who doesn't pass out from the torturous pain of time travel. Who pilots a time sphere back 7 days from a catastrophic event so the Black Ops group can stop it. The first thing he does on arrival is call a secret phone number and say, "Conundrum. The flight's information was available and publicly aired within hours after 9/11. But I don't remember how long it took them to figure out who the terrorists were. But with armed marshals in plain clothes on those flights, all 4 planes could have been saved." I reckon the best you could do is pull the fire alarms in the buildings around 8:20 am. Not sure what's reasonable or not. Enough time for thousands of people to evacuate the buildings. But long enough outside that all or almost all the people would not be in the building when the planes hit. This doesn't even account for the people on the planes or the Pentagon. You would need lots of people to stop everything. I think you'd have to do better than pulling the alarms. They might be ignored. What I'm saying is that if you want to save the people, you might have to actually start a fire. Call the FBI anonymously and tell them in detail what you know about what happens the day after. I think I know enough to at least raise an eyebrow and could get some extra attention at least on the security screens at the airport that day. Oh hell yeah. The government was already well aware of Osama bin Laden and the situation with terrorism in the Middle East prior to 9/11. If you called in with all of the details even a layperson would know about 9/11, you'd totally raise more than a few eyebrows. Of course. You'd then have to explain how you knew the things you knew, and I highly doubt telling the government I'm from the future would sate their curiosity. I go to Dallas and kill my baby self, causing a tear in the space-time continuum and destroying the fabric of reality. It stops 9/11 though. You'd still be alive. You just won't exist as 2 people. Get a bunch of cars, trucks, etc. Ram them into doors and entryways of the buildings at 3 am ish. Pour some gas on the wrecks and set them on fire. This. Something to stop people getting into the buildings in the first place rather than hoping to evacuate. I would spend my day buying Apple and Amazon stock. Then the next morning I'd be like, shit, I was supposed to do something. I'd short United Airlines. I'd call in a bomb threat for the towers from an anonymous number. I'd call as many news stations as I could and make demands. They'd evacuate the towers and the impact would be minimized. I couldn't remember anything else pertinent like the airlines involved or the names of the people involved, so it would be too hard to stop 9/11. But I might save some lives. Rick Rescorla predicted the first bombing of the WTC and the plane attack on 9/11. He is an American hero who fought in the battle that the movie We Were Soldiers was about and saved thousands of lives due to the planning and preparations that he implemented for Morgan Stanley. This New Yorker piece brought me to tears the first time I read it. If anyone wants to find out about this incredible man's life and actions on 9/11. By not hijacking the plane. FBI wants to know your location. I'd sacrifice myself and take one for the team. First I'd buy an airline ticket and smuggle a box cutter onto the plane. You could do that back in those days. Once airborne, I'd half-heartedly try to hijack it. Assuming I didn't get killed, I'd tell the FBI that I was part of a group who was going to do this tomorrow as part of our jihad against the US. I'd tell them we were going to hijack 4 planes from Boston, New York, and Washington DC, and that our ringleader was Mohammed Atta. This is genius. Step 1. Stop being 1.5 years old. Step 2. Probably not as important as step 1. Same here. Actually exactly the same since I was born March 2000. Current me looks different enough from 2001 me that I will not be recognized easily. So him. I start by buying a set of clothes and a hair trimmer. Then I write a letter detailing as much as I can remember and take the train to a town I'm not likely to visit again anytime soon. There, I find the local library and pay in cash to use their fax machine. Then I fax my letter to the American embassy in our country. If they don't act, 9/11 is on them. Not me. Then I take the train somewhere else and find a power outlet where I can remove my beard and as much of my hair as I can. Then I'll change clothes and go to where 2001 me lives and ask if I can crash with him until I can figure out how to get back. Have you thought about this a lot? It sounds like an interesting idea for a book or film. You have two scenarios. You wake up to the version of yourself on that date and wherever you were at the time. You wake up to the current version of yourself on that date. Either case you have no access to future tech. The only thing you have to go on is whatever your current recollections of the past are. Conspiracies aside, how would you get people to believe you? If I wake up as I was on the 10th of September 2001, I'd be completely useless because I was a toddler. If I wake up as I am now, I'd be slightly less useless. But I think the best I could do would be to report it to the FBI. And even then, it probably wouldn't help. And even if you prevent one disaster like that, chances are, something worse would happen in its place. I'd pull a Tommy boy and put on a fake bomb vest. Then I'd tell them that there are bombs in the Twin Towers so they evacuate. Then I'd surrender and tell them what happens and hopefully they would shut down all air traffic. Go pull the fire alarms. Honestly, compared to everyone trying to convince people about the attacks happening, this is probably the most feasible plan. Email my cousin. She worked in the towers but it was her day off. Her hubby was in a protected office in the Pentagon when it got hit. Apparently they thought it was an earthquake at first, due to his contract work on some still classified projects. Get them to make the warnings for me. I find it interesting how many people think of 9/11 as some sort of inevitability, when the truth was that we were blindsided so hard that a couple of phone calls could have prevented the whole thing. I happen to live near the hotel where Muhammad Atta had stayed the night before. I've often thought of how a couple of shotgun blasts at 6 in the morning could have changed the course of human civilization. The lesson? Always kill your neighbors. I wake up excited since it was my golden birthday and I just turned 11. I remember getting the Star Wars B-Wing set. I'd be useless at trying to stop 9/11 because I was 11. You could call a bomb threat to each of the airports from a public phone and just walk away and hope the FBI doesn't track you down and torture you. Quick, without looking it up. Which airports? I'm pretty sure most people can't answer this. Board one of the flights. Start having a breakdown about how you're not sure if the bomb on board the plane you're on, along with the ones on the other two planes, will go off as they should, being sure to get loud and specific about the airline flights. Then start reminding myself about the backup plan to run the planes into the buildings in case the bombs don't go off as expected. Better yet, buy a ticket for the first plane to take off. Then while in the airport waiting to board, go up to the lead terrorist. Pretend to be a government agent or something, and tell him you know their whole plan and he and all of his partners will be arrested once they board the planes. He would surely call the whole thing off right there. Not only that, they'd probably scrap the whole plane attack in the future because they were found out. I would find the best possible viewing angle I can and set up the highest quality video recorder I can get my hands on. I don't believe ducking with history would be beneficial, since it could just as easily end up making things even worse than they actually were. So I think the best possible use of that situation would be to try and get the best documentation of it that I can. Dude, if you had video of the first plane hitting, you would definitely be thrown in jail or executed as a co-conspirator. I'd call that Frenchman from Man on Wire to tightrope walk between the two towers holding a red cape like a matador. Then watch him lead those two bulls right between the goal posts. I'm cackling. This is the best method in here for sure. Let's say I stop it or even minimize casualties. I'm probably in trouble with some agencies and on a couple of lists. What changed? Every security protocol changed after 9/11 to catch future attacks. Wouldn't I just be delaying the inevitable? Or even making it worse? What happens next time? SF Bridge as a whole? Empire State Building? 5 more planes? If they wouldn't have succeeded on 9/11 then we would be talking about another day in history that something awful happened. It was inevitable. But it's possible that you also stopped the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Not to say another attack wouldn't start it at a later date. But who knows? Maybe, just maybe, you save far more lives than those in around the towers. College Humor has a video about this. Call up Mark Wahlberg. Done. Move the buildings to the left a little. I would make sure Mark Wahlberg was on that plane. You wouldn't. If you started announcing a terrorist attack before it happens, then the US will have reason to believe you were involved. You just say you overheard it waiting in line at Chick-fil-A, telling everyone to leave the US so there is no one to kill. Odds are I wake up late that day and miss everything. Start a fire on the floor of each of the twin towers just big enough to cancel work for employees before there are that many people in the building. This would make it so that even if the planes did hit the towers, fewer people would die. I don't think it would be possible for one man to stop 9/11. You'd most likely just end up in prison because they wouldn't believe you weren't somehow involved. Simple, just shove the planes up my anal cavity works every time. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.